Welcome everybody again. I'm going to talk about the openEHR gradual implementations. Yes. Okay, first a bit about the background of Code24. We got knowledge in around 2006. At that time, Ocean Informatics came to Alkmaar, where we are established, and we gave some information about openEHR. Based on that, I was working in the hospital of Alkmaar, and we did some experiments with openEHR. And in 2010, we decided to establish Code24 to really make some implementations, real-life implementations, and show that we really can improve healthcare IT. For Code24, we are focused on the healthcare IT using openEHR. So our whole product suite is based on openEHR. We are informing organizations about the uses of openEHR as well. It's very important that everybody knows what is openEHR and how can it be and should it be used. Our focus is also the mental health care. So because we want to get folks and a good footprint in mental health care, we decided to stick to that one. And our product is a complete EHR product suite. So for Friesland, we now have an implementation where everybody is using our openEHR suite. Based on that, we also use the demographics, and we noticed that demographics of openEHR is not widely used yet. The main parties who are involved in using openEHR adoption are the government level, the vendors, and the healthcare organizations. With a big importance of the vendors, they really decide how the adoption of openEHR will be. The thing is, with vendors, they are money driven. So the big vendors who have already an existing system, a proprietary system, proprietary database, they will not change or cannot change. And I will tell you later more about that. The vendors, they lobby with the government to say, okay, you should not change it. So they want to keep the system in place. Basically, it's all about the combination of money, power, and people. We should not underestimate that. That's a big important key of the adoption of openEHR. For the government should have knowledge about what is openEHR. So they can make the legislation, and they can also make funding for other organizations to try out openEHR installations. And the healthcare organizations should also have knowledge about what is openEHR. So the programs that are now being established about teaching people how openEHR is working is very important for the adoption of openEHR. If you look at the type of vendors, you have the traditional vendors who have legacy software, and they cannot or will not change. They cannot change probably because it's too expensive to build a whole new system. Certainly, if you look to a chipsoft or an Epic, it will cost millions if you want to change a whole new system for that. They will not change it because they make good money about establishing keeping the whole situation in place. They can make lots of money about making all kind of communication between systems if they want that. So they make really good money about keeping the system in place. Another type of vendor we will see are the new vendors or the traditional vendors who would build their own database persistence, or openEHR persistence. New vendors, they don't have legacy, so they can build new systems from scratch. And there are some traditional vendors, look at Meer, they build their own openEHR persistent, but also Marant, better, they build their own systems based on openEHR. And there will be coming more vendors who are doing so. But I expect that most vendors will stick to their own proprietary database. They only will change if we force them to change. How can we force them to change? Making more implementations and get more business from them. Then it is a money-driven world, they have to change. or they flop. The latest ones are the new vendors and the app builders who are eager to use an open platform. If you look to openEHR, and not look to openEHR, to the healthcare. If you look to healthcare, there are lots of companies who would like to build some apps in the healthcare system, but they cannot because the data is in a single one. It cannot be communicated with other care systems. It's too complex for them. But if you build a persistent layer which they can use and only make the user interface available, then they can also go into healthcare and make new apps and functionality built on the platform layer. With that's the phase three, so to say. You can have multiple app builders or new vendors based on a persistent open platform building apps. And apps can be also small apps on a mobile device, which really have the data in a central place, which can be used by another system to show it to the one who's in charge of it. If you look into openEHR adoption within an organization, most organizations, they have no openEHR based system in their organization, but they have multiple care systems in their organization, and together they have the EHR landscape, as I call it. It's a some people say, okay, what's your EHR? Basically, you can say that in an organization you always have multiple systems where the data of the patient is being stored. So we have an EHR landscape. For instance, for medication or for questionnaires or for e-health, it's all medication data for the patient. So it's belonging to the EHR landscape. I also have the main EHR, and the main EHR is basically the EHR which is doing the basic patient registration and the financial. So making the invoices to get the money. But they're all together connected to each other. The thing is, every system has its own proprietary database designed by the vendor. And sometimes there's a big wall around this, and you cannot communicate the data to the other system. The second situation you will see in an organization is when there is one system based on an openEHR database. With that, an organization gets more knowledge about how that system is working, what it can compare to the other systems who are not on an open database. You get more knowledge, and you get more greediness for the organization to also change the other care provider platforms. That's what we are doing from Code24. So we implement small modules of our EHR in an EHR landscape, so organizations can see what the power is of openEHR itself. The third situation you will see in an organization is that it gets multiple instances of openEHR situations. For instance, a main EHR which has an openEHR platform, or a questionnaire which is connected to an openEHR platform. That is already existing in the Netherlands. NADAP and Code24 are together in one organization where we have multiple openEHR instances and also integrated together. Then you have the last one, slide, the situation 4, one central open platform with several EHR applications in an EHR landscape. And this is maybe the end goal that we want to reach everybody. But I can tell you this will take a long, long time. It can maybe 10, 20 years before we really reach this. If you look to Code24, how we started, and this is an old slide from the situation of one of our customers. He was having a care provider portal within the EHR and several care provider systems. And they wanted to have a client portal connected to the EHR. And they were not being able to get the data out of the EHR to that client portal. So they asked us for a solution. And what we did, if we put base 24, our interpretation of openEHR, we put underneath, and mConsole is our user interface, which can be connected to any other EHR. So with that, we could have, we implemented user interfaces in the care providers portal. We took data out of the EHR and sent it to the client portal. So we have all kind of connectivity here that we can create data from a proprietary database by SQL or other means. We collect the data, store it in an openEHR format, and send it to the client portal. The client portal is putting data inside an openEHR format, and we put it through that line to the user interface to the care provider. And that's basically how we implement our software. We also have the other systems, the other care systems, where the data can be created, being copied to our database, but we also can send it to the client portal, and from the care systems, we can have user integration in the client portal and in the care provider's portal. And the last stage is basically that we eliminate the main EHR by having more and more modules operational, and then you have this situation. Where we have already a client portal designed by another company. They use our API to get the data from the base 24. So that's basically a company who built an application without having a database in the application. So that's basically my presentation. One more thing, you see here also the input output. We are able to send file messages and get file messages back, but also AnyFact and all kind of other standards who are available. There was a discussion earlier about, okay, which one should you use via openEHR? For me, it doesn't matter, as long as it helps us to get to the higher need that we want to have with all of us. We want to have an open system which can have the information blocks in a certain way that we can reuse it, that we can use it later for AI and whatever. And for that, we have technology. Standards will help us with that. Which standards will help us to a better level. That's what I'm trying to say. Sometimes people say, okay, I'm in the 807 fire camp, or I'm in the openEHR camp, and they're arguing with each other. I think it's wrong. The people who are using standards, they are making the world better. What you really should do is conflict with the people who are not using standards and make a database proprietary and closed. That's the thing that we should eliminate. Okay, that's my presentation.
I heard it from you. Are there any questions from the group? Oh, a couple.
Yeah, just a generic one. For the mental care, they have different data sets. I'm not a specialist in mental care. What is your experience in the archetypes and evolution in the open-air space for mental care?
In mental care, you have some differences, but they are not so big compared to the other healthcare environments. We made some specific ones, specifically for healthcare, but if you look to a care plan, for instance, that's exactly the same as in a hospital. Maybe some few small differences. But basically, the whole informatics around openEHR, that's being handled. So that's not a problem because physicians are handling that. And the stability is the technician on the lower level, like the reference model that you mentioned. And that's helping us a lot as a vendor.
Another question.
I was missing one application in your diagrams, the data warehouse. How do you deal with data warehouses?
Data warehouse is being fed by one of the exports. So all the data that is needed for the data warehouse is being exported and sent to the data warehouse. So data warehouse can put some queries or some tables for us available, and we push the data to the data warehouse that they need with background processes.
So the base 24 becomes a preprocessor for the data warehouse? Is that-
No, the data warehouse, you decide what kind of data you want to have. You configure that in base 24, and you say, okay, at this time, within the cycles, you send that data to the data warehouse. Basically, we want to keep all the data as much as in base 24, because then we can track and trace, okay, who is accessing the data. As long as it leaves base 24, I don't have any knowledge about who touches the data and who reads the data.
Any other questions? If not, Martin, I want to thank you very much for this presentation.